Hey guys, so you learned about how to use for loops in Java. Now I'm going to show you an example of how you can use the for loop to loop over elements in an array. So let's say I have an array of integers called age, and I assign this array some random integer values. So now let's say I want to write a program that prints out every element in this array, which is every separate integer that I've stored in the array. So I want to print out each element of this array one by one on a separate line. The output should look like this. So to get this output, I can use the for loop to loop through each element of this array and print each one out on a separate line. So what would that look like? Well, I would create my for loop by writing for, open brackets, int I is equal to 0. So here I've set my loop counter variable to 0. Then I would write the condition at which I want the loop to terminate. So since there are only a certain number of elements in my array age, this loop should only run until all the elements of the array are printed out. For example, if there are only 10 elements in my array, then I want my loop to run only 10 times. I don't want my loop to run 100 times. So I would set the condition to I is less than age.length. Remember that the name of the array .length tells us the number of elements in this array. This code says that once I is more than the number of elements in the array age, this loop will terminate. Now I would write I is equal to I plus 1. So, after every time the loop runs, the value of I will increase by 1. Now I'll open braces and write the code that I want the loop to execute inside the braces. So, in this case, I can use the variable I as an index value of the array. In the first execution of the loop, I will be 0. And the index of the first value in the array is 0. Remember? Then in the second execution of the loop, I will become 1. And the index of the second value in the array is 1. So to print out an element of the array that is at a certain index in the array, I could write system.out.println, open brackets, and println will make sure that it will go to the next line after it prints something. And then inside the brackets, I can write the name of the array, which is age, open square brackets, and then write I, which indicates the index value. So what is happening in this code now? Well, it is telling the computer to print out whatever element is at the index value I in the array age. For example, when I has a value of 0, the code accesses the first element in the array age, because the index of the first element is 0. So let me walk you through how this loop is going to be executed. First, the computer will see that there's an array called age with these integer values assigned to it. Then, when it goes to the loop, it'll see that the loop counter variable called I is initialized to 0. Then it'll see this statement, which is telling the computer to print out the element at the index I in the array age. So it'll print out the element at index 0, because right now I is equal to 0. So it'll print out 12 on the first line. Then after the first execution of the loop, it'll go to this statement, and it'll add 1 to the existing value of I, which is 0. So now I becomes 1. And as long as I is less than age.length, which in this case is 1, 2, 3, 4, as long as I is less than 4, it'll execute the statement again. Now the statement will tell the computer to print out the element that is at index value 1. The element at index 1 in the array age is 20. So now it'll print out 20. Then again, it'll add 1 to the existing value of I, which is 1. So now I becomes 2, And since 2 is still less than 4, which is age.length, it'll print out the element at the index value 2 in the array age, which is now 55. So it prints out 55 on the next line, and then it goes to the next line again. Remember, because it says println, not print. And println makes sure it goes to the next line. And then finally, I will become 1 plus 2, which is 3. And since 3 is still less than 4, it'll print out the element at index value 3 in the array age, which is the last element, 31. So then it'll print out 31 on the next line. And then I will become 4. And since 4 is not less than 4, the loop will terminate. So now let's run the code and see what it prints out. As expected, it printed out each element of the array age on a separate line. So this is how you can use a for loop to iterate through an array. Now do the assignment after this video to apply what you learned about for loops in Java.